I'm Cookie Miller, and this is Worth the Wait. Join me every week as I explore profound weight loss solutions beyond just diet and exercise, because a lifestyle change starts with changing your mind. This week's episode is sponsored by Cookie Miller Coaching, a holistic online weight loss coaching service that aims to help women who have 30 pounds or more to lose. This program is for the woman who has tried everything and is serious about making a lifestyle change. Visit apply.cookiemiller.com to book your free consultation call. We are enrolling new clients now and space is limited. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Worth the Wait. I am your host, Cookie Miller, and today's topic actually comes from our Instagram. So thank you so much to @XOSheree, who asked about handling unsolicited weight loss advice. Now, she specifically wanted to know how to address people who suggest how she should be doing something or what she should be doing instead of just congratulating her weight loss success. So Sheree, I want to say congratulations to you on your success thus far. Clearly, what you're doing is working. Good for you, girl. And thank you so much for submitting your question for the podcast. Now, I'm going to answer this question with a question or with a series of questions just to kind of help you if you're someone who is struggling with people that are giving you unsolicited advice. Then this is a way for you to really practice and kind of go through where you're getting that advice from and how to handle it. So I'm going to break this into a few parts. We're going to figure out where the advice is coming from, who the person is and what their intention is, boundary setting, acceptance, and then a little bit about having a public weight loss journey. So it'll all make sense as we go. The first thing to consider is who is giving you this advice. Is this somebody who you know? Is this a family member? Is it someone who has maybe had a successful weight loss journey? Or is it someone who just lost 10 pounds and they've only, kept that 10 pounds off for the past 2 days? Who is giving you the advice? This is such an important question for you to ask yourself, because then this allows you to really gauge whether or not this advice would be truly helpful, if this advice is even well-intentioned, what it helps you to determine how you should be listening and what type of listening ears you should have on for this particular conversation. The next thing you want to think about is, what is this person's intention? And I mean, depending on the relationship that you have or do not have with this person, you may be able to just ask them that question, but also just being able to kind of feel the vibe, engage for yourself. What do you think their intention is? Do you think they have poor intentions? Is this someone who is really just trying to make you feel bad about yourself? Is this someone who's really just jealous of the progress that you've made, right? You have to determine what this person's intention would be, because that helps you with how you respond or maybe don't respond. Now, I think I have a bit of an interesting perspective on this, because I've been in the position where I was 100 pounds overweight and I received a ton of unsolicited advice. But now I'm in the position as a trainer where, maybe I see somebody in the gym kind of doing something wonky and I'm like, oh, I should really, let them know so that they don't get hurt. But then, of course, there's even a fear, because so much is talked about as far as receiving unsolicited advice and how people try to tell you what to do and things like that. So then, you kind of feel bad because you don't want to say anything, because you don't want to offend anybody. So it's interesting to have been in both of those positions. Now, another very interesting position I've been in, and you can go back on my YouTube channel if you're not familiar with this, but on my YouTube channel several years ago, I did a video about, it was called Lose Weight, Lose Friends. And it was about an experience that I had with a particular friend who had been my friend for nearly all my life at that point. And, how we started this weight loss journey together. I won't bore you with the story, especially if you don't want to hear it. But if you do, I'll leave the link in the description to this video for you guys to check it out. But basically, a lot of people had commentary on this video, and a lot of the comments were saying that I had given her unsolicited weight loss advice. Now, keep in mind, we had gone on this weight loss journey together. I had seen more progress in the weight loss journey, and I started to really kind of pull forward. I was going and doing things on my own if she didn't come and stuff like that. So the advice that I was giving her was based on her making comments about how much I had progressed and me saying, hey girl, you can do it too. Just do this. This is what I did, or do that. So some people may or may not deem that as unsolicited advice. I did not think it was unsolicited in the beginning, and I don't think that it's unsolicited now. But you can go back and watch the video and judge for yourself. So after you've considered those first two questions, right? Who's giving you the advice and what is their intention? Like in the example that I gave you guys, this was my childhood friend of many, many years. And my intention was to help her to do what I had done. So in my opinion, that was coming from a good place, and that should have been advice that she should have received or could have received openly. That's my opinion, right? So you're asking these questions to yourself. Who is giving you the advice, and who and what is their intention? After you determine those things, then it's time for you to set a boundary. And this is where I think people completely miss it. This is where people miss it. They get very upset about receiving this unsolicited advice, but they don't consider what they've done or maybe said to make someone feel like it is okay for them to give said advice. So one thing that I found is that people will not want the advice, but then won't say that they don't want the advice. And so you have to be very clear in saying, hey, thanks for trying to help, but I'm doing my own thing. I'm on my own journey. I know my body and what works for me. And I would really appreciate it if you did not, share your opinion, right? Like, you have to be able to set those firm boundaries. And I think this goes even deeper than just that, because for a lot of people, when you're in a position where you're out of shape, you're overweight, and maybe you're in a gym setting, and maybe that's where somebody's giving you the advice, you can really feel very small, and like you don't have a voice and you can't stand up for yourself because you're in this setting that's not really your world, right? Like you don't really live in the gym world, and this person who looks like they are aesthetically, like they've just been in the gym forever, they've been an athlete forever, and they come and they try to bring you this advice, it feels like you can't respond in a certain way, but you absolutely can. Like, you can say, hey, I understand what you're trying to do. I appreciate it, but no thanks. And people will leave you alone. They will respect that and they will leave you alone. But what I have found time and time again is that people are internally getting very, very upset about being given this advice, but they're not outwardly saying anything to the person who's giving the advice. So maybe they're, commenting on a thread or something like that about it online, but they're not actually talking to the people in their lives who are giving them the advice. And so that person will continue to do what they think is being accepted. And then you, as the person who does not want the advice, will continue to hold that resentment in the inside because you're not outwardly saying, hey, leave me alone. So on that note, my next tip is to keep it to yourself. And this is not even like a typical weight loss tip that I would use, because I actually believe that when you put it out there, what you're doing, it helps to keep you a little bit accountable. So I would say I would even change this tip or adjust it to keep it to yourself in certain circles. Right? So if you have a family member who is the problem person, right? Every time you come around for holidays, they're making comments, they're giving advice. Oh, you shouldn't be eating that. I thought you were on this and that, or whatever. Then that person, maybe it's best that you don't let that person know what you got going on, right? So that they can't comment at all. But also, if you're not ready to receive feedback, especially if you're going to post your journey online publicly, then it's probably also best to keep it to yourself, or just not give a FUCK right? Like you gotta know, like you have to choose what you're gonna do, because when you post stuff online, and Lord knows I know this after 7, 8, however many years it's been of posting a weight loss journey and posting fitness stuff online, people will come and share their opinion. That's what the online world is. And you can choose to block those people. You can choose to do a whole bunch of things to prevent people from bothering you online. But if you're not ready to receive that type of feedback, then putting yourself out there on a very public platform, like let's just say a public Instagram page, is probably not best. It'd probably be best for you to do something like a private Facebook group or something like that. I have an awesome free Facebook community called the 5%, and it's based on the fact that 95% of women who lose weight will gain it back and then some. But the purpose of this group is like, we are the 5%. We are the ones who do not gain the weight back. And I'm really wanting to revamp that group and everything, because it was something that was a 2020 project, and we know how 2020 went, but I definitely want to revamp that. So find us on Facebook. I'll leave a link in the description as well. But the Facebook group is called the 5%. So if you just search like the 5% weight loss, you'll find it. But posting somewhere like that, where you have a certain community, it's going to be encouraging, I would say go for it. I have all my clients in a group. They can post their weight loss wins. They can post things they're struggling with. They can, we can have conversations and things like that throughout the week. And it's a place where there's no judgment. It's a safe space to do that. So I would say, unless you are prepared for public ridicule, because somebody will have something to say, then keep it to yourself or put it in a safe place. So let's just go over this a bit. The first thing that we are going to do is identify who is the person that is giving the advice. This is such an important step. It's the first step for a reason, because you need to determine, is this an important person to you? Is this not an important person to you? And does this person have any value to give you? Is this someone that you actually have seen progress over the last maybe 2 years, and you see them keeping the weight off, and you see them making healthy decisions, and maybe their feedback will be helpful? Or is this somebody who just did like some kind of crazy tea diet, and they're trying to get you to do it too, and you're not about that life? You have to consider those things, because your response isn't going to be the same to every single person, right? So that's number one. Number two is understanding the person's intention, which of course goes along with knowing who the person is. So depending on who that person is to you, or if that person is even anybody to you, especially if it's a stranger, it's like, I don't really care what you have to say. So when you determine those two things, it helps you to be able to determine whether or not you can just ignore what they're saying, y'all. I was just out buying some furniture a few weeks ago, and I was chatting with this sales guy, and he was clearly like a very fit, very in shape guy, and he's telling me all these things about how he hit PRs on bench press, and he's saying terminology that you wouldn't really know unless you've really been in the gym. And I was dressed in workout gear, and it's clear that I work out, so we were connecting on that. But then he started trying to give advice on different lifting techniques and things like that. And in my head at first, I was like, oh, this guy has no idea. Like, I'm a trainer. Like, I know all this stuff. Like, that's what I was thinking, right? But then I was like, well, this guy is in his 50s. He is in good shape. Like, he is in great shape, especially for his age. He showed me this awesome video of him doing this crazy bench press PR, and he was telling me about this specific technique, where you do this 10-second hold and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, so instead of me going into oh, I'm a trainer, no, I know about that, whatever, it's just be open. So I was just open to what he had to say, and he was sharing some techniques with me that I was like, oh, I'm gonna actually try that at my next workout. So y'all, one of the biggest things that I've learned throughout this whole weight loss process, and I think just getting older too, is that you can learn from anybody. You can learn from anybody. It doesn't matter if they're older than you, younger than you, if they're in shape, if they're not in shape. So sometimes I think that it is a good idea to just be open to the advice. Just be open and put down your guard of being so offended, because a lot of the times the people that I'm around, at least when I hear about them offering to help somebody or doing something, it's always a very well-intentioned thing. So sometimes people have really, really good intentions with the things they're doing, and maybe they need to back off. Maybe that's something they need to handle. But if you are on the receiving end and you even understand what I just said, then maybe you can give someone the grace to allow them to just, explain and help in the way that they feel like they're helping, and then just let it go. And if it's someone who you're going to see all the time, though, or it's something that's going to be recurring, then at that point, that's when you have to go into the other tip that I mentioned, which is boundary setting, where you say, hey, I understand what you're trying to do, but I don't want it. I'm good. So you, as the person who's receiving the unsolicited advice, you have to be able to use your voice, speak up, and also sometimes be open, because you never know how much that advice can help you and how much that person can help you if you're just open to the advice. And then you also never know how strong your voice is and how capable you are to be able to set boundaries for yourself unless you actually speak up. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Worth the Wait. Thanks again to @XOSheree for the topic suggestion. I hope you love the podcast this week. If you guys have any podcast topic suggestions, please let us know over on our Instagram @WorthTheWaitPodcast. You can also follow me @CookieMiller on Instagram. And if you take a screenshot or something of you listening to the episode and maybe share a little bit about what you liked, we will definitely repost it. I love seeing those. I love reposting those on my story and on my page. So I definitely want to hear from you guys. So thanks so much, y'all. I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.